Welcome as the Winnipeg Sun presents Inside Politics, a live roundtable from the Cork and Flame restaurant with your host, Kevin Klein, and special guests, breaking down and discussing the topics that matter to Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba. Now, please welcome your host, Kevin Klein.
Welcome to everybody here. Thank you very much for coming. I am Kevin Klein from the Winnipeg Sun. This is Inside Politics, our very first live town hall, something that we want to do when issues come up that we believe you need to be informed on. We don't want to do the necessarily all the information to you. We want to be able to provide information and allow you to ask questions, because I think that makes a more informed electorate. And I think that that's very important. So tonight, we're going to be joined by two guests. Our guest coming up is a gentleman by the name of Wally Doddridge. Some of you might know him as, yes, go ahead. Wally is one of the leadership candidates for the Conservative Party, Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba. So we'll spend some time with Wally Doddridge. But first and foremost, I want to spend some time with a former colleague of mine, Brian Mayes, City Councillor for St. Vital. So please welcome Brian. Thank you. So Brian is here to join us today because of an ongoing issue at the City of Winnipeg that since we started covering some of this information about four-plexes, we've been getting a lot of emails at the Winnipeg Sun. I've been getting messages on Facebook and different social media platforms about people that are concerned about it. They're afraid about it. One of our great columnists, Marty Gold, who is also here tonight, wrote a column about the city only wanting to do one live in-person session to talk about the four-plexes because of security concerns. So as I can see here, we don't have any. So maybe the city should have came here, but we don't have any security concerns, so this is an open forum. You're welcome to come up to the microphone that is right over here by Michael. There's a light shining on it. Anytime you have a question, we'll notice you, and we want you to come up and ask a question. That's why Brian's here in the hot seat, so that we can have this discussion. So we're going to talk about four-plexes. The fact is that the city is trying to ram them through, in my opinion, because they believe they get funding from the Canadian government, which, as we know, will probably be in the midst of an election, hopefully sooner rather than later. And that funding could be mute at the end of the day. We know that that funding was dependent on 14,000 new units. However, the mayor, Scott Gillingham, announced that he's already achieved those 14,000 units. So I'm not sure why then we need to ram through the four-plexes. But we'll talk to Brian about this. The other issue that I want to talk to Brian about that I think is really important, because people are focused on the four-plexes, and that's kind of what government does, right? Look over here while something's happening over here. And that's that three-plexes could happen in any part of the city that doesn't have a gravel back lane. So these are all issues that I want to talk to Brian about. Now, Brian, you have done a great job trying to inform people of Winnipeg. So tell us briefly where you sit on this issue and why you think it's so important.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, and thanks to Marty and you for really shining a light on this over the past several months. So yeah, this is it's an odd provision, really. It's a federal government funding. This is how this started in 2023. Housing Accelerator Fund, 4 years, $30 million a year. But one of the conditions you have to meet as a city is agree to four-plex. And we did a town hall, and somebody said to me, "What did you mean by four-plex?" So I realized I got to explain this. So four-plex is like a duplex, but double the number of units. So 4 units in a house-like building in a residential area. So federal government mandated four-plexes. The vote of council was, well, we'll do that where appropriate. And now the year-and-a-half-long battle of what do you mean by where appropriate? So I've still got an open mind about it. We have this, what is a great opportunity for democracy is this is council. All 16 members are the hearing body. Normally, if you've gone down there, it's 3 people at the community committee or 4 people at some policy committee. This is all 16 of us in the room the whole way through. So week-long hearing, record-setting hearing anticipated starting June 2nd. So I put out a discussion paper that I can talk about on the fly here, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of concerns, and it is unfortunate, certainly the city's only having one in-person meeting on this, and that's tomorrow at the convention center. I had 3 myself in November with no security concerns, so I'm not buying into that. So this is the midst of this discussion, and I'm along with Councillor Orlico, I think, and some others, trying to get as much public input as we can.
So, but when you talk about that, it's going to be 16 councillors on their own hearing this, and they're going to be the hearing body. But we already know the mayor has their kind of the inner circle as the people that he's paying a little extra money to be on EPC. I kind of always beat you up for that, for being on EPC. I'm not a big fan of that methodology or governance, if you will. But doesn't he already have the votes to put this through?
Well, you might think that, because the original vote to do it was 13-3, and I was one of the 3, and I was subsequently removed from the executive some months after that. But it gives me a lot of time to work on this. It's sort of become a obsession or quest, whatever. It's trying to do something for a bunch of older neighborhoods, really, across the city. So we did win a vote 8-7 to move the hearing from March of 2025 to June, which was very important because the federal election will likely have happened in the interim. And a number of my colleagues have been saying, oh, you're jeopardizing, 240 million. And I keep saying, oh, I'll go higher than that. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's the federal government, the federal election is jeopardizing the federal funding here. So if the government changes hands, and I think that's a very different debate in June. So, right. We can have a number of amendments. 7 amendments passed on the last round of this, the malls and corridors. So I'm anticipating lots of amendments, and some of them will get through and some won't.
So when you talk about a fourplex in somebody's neighborhood, so this is somebody that lives in a residential area or a threeplex. How high are these buildings going to be? What are they allowed to be today, and how high will they be allowed now?
And this is the slight difficulty, and that sound seems too bad. This is the slight difficulty of where we were in November when I had my town halls, that the staff have actually, I think, realized these guys might have some votes and have made some changes. So in November, we were saying, well, the new height limit's going to be 48 feet, 70% increase over height limits in some parts of the city. Well, that's now down to 39 feet. And I was saying, well, did the feds sign off on that? And apparently they have. So the height limit change, not so bad, but still the fight about, well, if I want to do a fourplex, should I have, the staff were saying you should have a lot that's 50 feet wide if you have a back lane. And then a new concept, even if you don't have a lane, go ahead and do it, but you need 60 feet wide. And I've been saying, I don't think that's wide enough if you're going to put 4 units in where there was a single family home. There's all sorts of driveway requirements and
where would they park?
Well, that was
in
another
a residential street. So say you're in Westwood and you're down Bedson or whatever, and you put a fourplex on Bedson because it's near transit and all that, or you put a threeplex. Where are they going to park?
Yeah, I mean, that was in November. We were, the thinking was, oh, well, everyone just park on the street. No one will have a car. And that was pretty widely scoffed at. So now it's one spot per unit, and it can't be in the front yard. So you're going to have these fourplexes. You're going to have to get around them and park in the backyard. So the backyard will be all paved. That's mathematically unavoidable, I think.
But if you have a 50-foot lot or a 60-foot lot, where are you going to put the driveway access to get to the back?
Yeah, and there's the whole debate about, maximum. One of the developers said, you should agree to what the staff are proposing. Nobody will ever build that. The 10-foot driveway. So, okay, I might take that under advisement. But yeah, there's sort of 2 requirements. If you have a back lane, and gravel lanes are a big issue in St. Vital, so the staff said, okay, it's got to be a paved lane to do a threeplex, and we should come back to that, or a fourplex. If you got a back lane, you got to use the back lane. But even if you don't have a back lane, we'll come up with this plan that you can come in off the front street.
So let's go back to the threeplex then, because I think that is important for people to know. I know it's always been fourplex, but the threeplex to me is the bigger issue, because that can happen pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, and this thing's had a couple of different names. It was originally called the 4s and 4s, because you got to allow 4 stories, the federal government says, and you got to have 4 units. Then the staff came back with a proposal calling it gentle density, which I rather mocked. I said at the council, it's a 400% increase in density. Like, that's not so gentle. Although then Orlico and I said, well, we're just gently trying to move the day of the hearing just through. So that got abandoned, and they're now just calling it infill. But this is citywide, right? You're amending the plans everywhere from Transcona to Sage Creek to Waverly West to Court Avenue, which I had to look up. It's up in Old Kildonan somewhere. Like, it's a citywide rezoning. Up to now, if your neighbor came in and said, you know, it's a single family, but I want to put up 3 or 4 units, you'd have a hearing. You could object to that.
Right.
All of this is that here. Like, this is a huge hearing covering 150,000 properties.
So if you have a single family home on one side, you have a neighbor that wants to do the 3-plex or whatever, or a 4-plex, where let's say he's allowed to do either one, and the neighbor on the other side, those 2 neighbors will never be notified about it and can never complain about it or oppose it or anything.
Right. I mean, if you had a clumsy developer who needs a variance, you know, they're too close to the front curb, they're too close, and we're talking about 2-foot side yards, which I don't think council will go. I don't think council is going to go for that. But if the developer designs it, then you would have a hearing. But right now, so it evolved from 4-plexes, federal mandate, to, well, let's allow duplexes and triplexes, and a whole new set of rule over that. I don't know what the votes on council will be around that. You can see that as, well, I'd rather have 3 units next to me than 4. But my view was, come on, this thing was called the 4s and 4s for a reason. So it should just be about 4-plexes. But we'll see where the votes are on that.
But being truthful, my time on council, I always found, especially with the planning department, somebody could come in at, let's say, 35 feet. If the builder went to 38 feet or 39, it was always, well, that's not that much more. And it never got challenged. It was almost a gimme that you had for 3 or 4 feet to go higher, and it was never really challenged. So what if that happens here in this situation? Because you don't have that ability to oppose it. I mean, the public service could turn that around and just start approving more and more without really any call.
And that's something we've been talking about, saying, well, look, you can't start just approving anything. That we're not going to go through this and then have, well, that was within 10% of the rules, so let's just give it to them.
Right.
Like, we can't have that. I do appreciate people coming out and caring about this. It's become a big issue in my life, and it can be pretty technical. But, you know, I had one of these meetings, and a woman stood up and said 2 things that I thought summarized it. This may increase my property value because now I can sell my house for a 4-plex. So I don't really want to change the neighbors, but it will lower the quality of life that I have if the neighbor's now 39 high, and I'm worried that the guy behind me might sell and maybe lower mine. So I better go for So I do think it'll lower it could lower your quality of life. And she also said, look, I know my neighborhood has to evolve. I don't expect it to look like this in 60 years, but it needs to evolve. It's not a sledgehammer. It doesn't need to all come down in the next 10 years. So that's as good a summary as you can get. I think that people should try and engage in this and give us their concerns, and we'll see where the votes are.
But a home is an investment for somebody. Right, and this is, first of all, I just want to say, this is a great time. If you have questions specifically about what might happen or how it might happen, please come up to the microphone. We've got Brian here for a little bit of time, so this is a great opportunity to ask your questions if you have any. But I want to go to the whole concept. It is an investment. A home, if somebody buys a home, it's an investment. And I see people online sometimes, the crowd, whoever they may be, the pro-development people or pro-urbanists, you know, oh, we need to have more houses. We need to have more houses. So you and I were talking before the program started, and we were talking about the 14,000 that Mayor Gillingham is saying, well, our goal was 8,000, we hit 14,000. Some of those are Parker lands, which isn't even going to be developed in 3 years. It's still in front of City Council, but it has to go in 3 or 4 stages before you actually get to the building part. So saying it's approved is just kind of a sleight of hand, a shell game, if you will, to say, well, we're going to get all this federal money, which Carney could stop tomorrow.
Yes.
Who knows what he would do?
Yeah.
I mean, we have no idea. I don't think he knows most days. He just kind of makes it up on the fly. So he could stop that if he thought it was going to be an issue. But if we have the 14,000 already, which is what the federal government says everyone has to get their money, why are we doing this? If we're already at 14,000. And you did say our real biggest issue is single-family homes.
I mean, this is the irony, is that our target is 14,000 to get the last of the federal money, and it's subdivided into categories, and the 4-plexes fall into what is called the missing middle, although it's no longer missing if we've already exceeded the target. We've already done 10% more than we need to. First 13 months of this, we're already over. So you don't need to do all this 4-plex rezoning to hit the target. We've exceeded the target. The irony is where we're below the target is things near transit, and single family, which we anticipated would be thousands and thousands, and we're short. So there's some irony to rezoning a bunch of neighborhoods to discourage single family when the very thing you're coming short on is the single family. But there's certainly a lot of rhetoric around this. I mean, you were there. It's, the sort of we need to build up, not out, is an easy thing to say. But what do you mean by that? What are the details? Like, surely we need to build up and out, as one planner once said. It's how you do it. So none of this is affordable. All of this was like, we need this $120 million more affordable housing. None of this stuff needs to be affordable by any definition. None of it needs to be in low-income areas. None of it needs to be in the older communities that had population loss. It could all be in Waverly West and Sage. And I mean, it's just this clumsy federal mandate, and we're trying to, negotiate with them. So it'll be this, certainly I feel like there's room to amend this.
So, but the amendments that if you make major amendments, the federal government say they were really going to come through with the money, could say, well, now we're not going to give you the money, but now we've got these new bylaws in place where people don't have the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, you're going to have I keep saying, is it a sham public hearing? We're going to have a real public hearing, because I'm going in there to amend stuff, and if they don't like it, I guess they'll have to, vote with their money. Like, if we're going to have a public hearing, go through all of this process, we have to be able to amend it. My discussion paper said I think you should have 66 feet wide for a four-plex if you don't have a back lane. Staff are at 60. Well, that's not unbridgeable. I've been in union management negotiations, so they go, I can think we can find a middle ground there somewhere. So there are certainly some things we could do. It's not all been resolved yet by any means. There's still a lot of details to be worked out here, and some things have been helpful to my area. I can't lie about that, the gravel lanes, but other things are big issues in St. James and other parts of the city.
So we just had record increases in our property taxes, fees. We've had new fees put on. You and I were in the water and waste together when I was at City Hall. So we had these record increases now. So now if you're going to go into neighborhoods and you're going to put a fourplex up, is that going to lower the taxes for the people that live on that street?
No, I mean, this is one of the frustrations is people come to me and say, I got this great plan for Glenwood, and we get all this, the city will get more money, and then I'll usually just close the binder and say, you haven't been following stuff, because my complaint is my ward never sees any of this money. There's no plan for that. So it's easy if you're certain councillors from new areas to say, we need more housing. Well, this is not really fair to a lot of different communities. So we need people to do what you're doing, come out to these hearings and let the staff know if you have concerns.
Okay. We have a question.
I'm going to ask a question, yeah.
Please.
First of all, Brian, I'd like to thank you for standing up for all Winnipeggers.
Yeah, thank you.
You're the only councillor that stepped forward and held some community events, and I congratulate you on doing that. My question is, it's a broader question, but in the last several years, it seems to me that most of the policies put forward by the city of Winnipeg are things that nobody wants. You can start with opening Portage and Main. I mean, they had a referendum on that. Bike lanes down major thoroughfares. Not properly cleaning the streets. The roads are a mess, and they're building bike lanes everywhere. And this is just another one. Malls and corridors. Again, another one that they're doing the four-story walk-ups. So where's this agenda coming from? And how come the councillors aren't standing up to them and say, oh, look, my guys don't want any of this. If you ask anybody in this room, they want a fourplex next to their home, they're going to go, of course not. No. So why? I guess my question is, why is this going on?
I think it's a mix. I'll leave aside some of that, and I probably voted for some of those things. On the fourplex, it wasn't part of our original proposal to the federal government. They came back with this. It's very convoluted, and you get a higher building if you're within 800 meters walking distance of rapid transit, but rapid transit's got this insanely broad half an hour on weekends. Well, that's not, nobody believes that to be rapid transit. So and now it's morphed into our staff saying, well, we should be talking about threeplexes and duplexes. So it's become this hybrid, this quite big rezoning exercise that's going to come sweep. I think some councillors, I mean, in some ways this is beneficial to my position, which is there were some people there who said, none of this is going to touch my ward. And then it comes in with the duplex and the triplex affecting narrower lots. And now they're coming to me saying, whoa, I didn't think I'd have to eat any of this. No. So it's interesting municipal politics here where it isn't just locked in. This is quite fluid, I think. So, I mean, why the federal government is gambling to an extent that this is, a solution, but it's very crude, right? It's just more supply here, more supply. We've had the incredible statement at council, well, we're just going to massively increase supply and then the market will take care of it. And you go, the entire 120 million is because the market failed, according to your own documents, to supply affordable housing. So it's a bit circular then to claim, well, we're just, the market will solve all this. Well, then why do it at all?
Yeah. But the question that he asked, which I think was really good. First of all, we'll talk about the affordable housing. None of the four-plexes, duplexes, three-plexes have to be affordable housing.
Correct.
That's not part of it. But the question was, who's driving the bus of doing what people don't want? Why is that happening in city council right now? And nobody wanted to have to pay more in water rates, water and sewer rates, when they're still siphoning $40+ million to put in a different fund. Nobody wanted that. Thank you. And really, you took the garbage fees, and all of a sudden it was part of property taxes. Now, in essence, we're going to double that. No one got to talk about that. That was, you put the budget through. It's not on you, but it gets me heated. Yeah. You put a budget through, and then all of a sudden you have all the fee increases that come secondary, so that you can hide some of these things. So to the question, who is driving that bus? Why is this happening?
Well, I mean, to some extent, it's, the mayor sets the priorities, as you know. So whoever the mayor is largely carries the ball. And some of this is, it's the first budget I didn't vote for since 2011, this last one. So it's been a long run. Some of it is the dividend. I think I said in the media, we've siphoned off the money for years and years and years. It kept from the sewer money to keep property taxes tamped down. And now you knew there'd be hell to pay eventually, and now we're at that point where if we're going to build these things, we're going to have to get the money. So we should stop doing that dividend.
You should, because you could have paid for it's been over $400 million. It's been taken, right? Could have paid for a lot.
Well, the strategy seems to be like, we're going to shame the province into giving us money. Right. The province guys are saying, you took $400 million. Like, if you hadn't done that, there's your problem. You guys, and they're right. Like we did. I voted for some of this. We, put ourselves in this box. But now's the time to get out.
But okay, so you're talking about, so let's go back to the water rates and the increase and all that. But nobody is sitting there saying, where do we have to cut? Where do we cut government spending? I wrote a column. It's on the Winnipeg Sun right now. Government spending is Canada's #1 enemy right now. That is what's destroying us. It's destroying us in Winnipeg. It's destroying us in the province. It's destroying us in the country. We're throwing money at everything that we cannot put our fingers on. And we did a budget, not blaming you, but we did a budget, and in everything that I heard not one councillor stand up and say, okay, are we looking at cutting non-essential spending? Why?
That's politics, I guess, is the crass answer. Is people gamble that's more popular to run the debt higher, to run the taxes higher. And we've for years sort of, this dividend thing kept taxes down when it's all been a bit of a shell game on the dividend. I think that's fair, but it's to some extent you think, well, people, this is we'll see what people want here. It's a gamble by everybody. If people want 0% property tax again, then
but let's go back.
They will have to vote for that. I guess.
Why didn't anybody try to lower costs?
Yeah, I think to be. Recently, it was a bit of a surprise in the budget. I wasn't on the budget working group. I wasn't involved at all for the first time in 13 years. And I was a little surprised that there was no, a reporter called me saying, what do you think of this, whatever it was, 5.99? I burst out laughing. He's like, are you kidding? Is it that? They were like, yeah, you didn't know that? No, I'm in exile. What do I know? But, I think when you were there was a bit of an attempt under then Mayor Bowman to say, okay, these departments are getting 0, these are getting 1, these are getting 2, and it kind of worked. I always thought people barked and some stuff got delayed, but it did kind of squeeze out the fat to some extent. I have to give that credit.
All right, I'm going to give you a break because Marty Gold, one of our columnists, is standing up at the microphone with a question, I'm assuming.
Yes. Brian, a comment you had posted my column from Sunday, which questioned the rationale for only one public open house. You posted on your Facebook page, and one response that I saw was from an individual who was part of the Zoom meeting last night, the first Zoom meeting. And they made a comment, and I thought maybe you'd be able to explain your point of view to the audience. This woman said that the planners had, and here's the quote, "zero plans to save healthy trees or add more public green space to mature neighborhoods, losing both to infill." Can you address that point?
Yeah, I mean,
please?
this is how this debate's now starting to get kind of interesting, I think, because people tried to demonize people. Oh, you're right wing, you're opposing the densification, you're opposing this, how we're going to lower taxes eventually, densification. But then then some people who are, environmentalists have started saying, no, we agree with him. Like, there's no plan here to do anything about riverbanks or trees or green space. It's just densification. So think a bit more about this, and that's, I think, some of my colleagues are having some sympathy for that. So, yeah, I mean, this debate's getting a little more interesting because people are realizing it isn't hopeless. There were only 3 of us opposed originally, but now we're getting, we won the vote 8-7 to delay the hearing. So it's getting interesting.
So when you get deeper into the reeds, all of a sudden it becomes another councillor's backyard, so to speak, and they get some concerns. Yeah. My recollection is, and I don't know what happened with this, my recollection is there was some sort of exclusion for properties near the riverbanks, near the dikes. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's supposed to be some flood fringe stuff in this document, and I've been saying to the planner, I don't need it tonight, but I need it by June 1st. Like, what huge issue on Kingston Crescent in my...
Right.
Is outside the primary dike. So this kind of stuff, doesn't seem like good policy to densify in an area that's flood prone or at risk of flooding with insurance claims. Yeah. That's probably not where you want to put four-plexes. So this sort of, this, and then the green space advocates are saying, well, we should have a buffer of 350 meters. I'm not sure what exactly they mean by that, but yeah, it's at least raising the issue about how much density do we want near the river?
Yeah, I think the thing with the dikes, also, I think that another factor in that was emergency response being hindered by all of a sudden you've got this density that's going to hinder them being able to get onto the riverbanks for emergency response. Is it safe to say that you're not going to tolerate four-plexes suddenly being put up on Rover and North Point Douglas, for instance, where there's no housing on that side?
I mean, it's I don't know I don't know anything about that street, but
we're taping this.
There's all sorts of limits of sewer capacity, not just in the old part of town, but like in River Park South, it's built out. People want to build apartment buildings and they're being told there's no sewer capacity left. It's not an old area, it's a relatively new area. So a lot of nuance here, a lot of complexity. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to come up with some lot widths that, make some sense for fourplexes and triplexes, and the height limit. I know Orlico's done a lot of work trying to say, look, this is a big increase in height, and luckily it's come down from 48 to 39, but we'll see where that lands.
Okay,
for now, though, right?
For now.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Somebody else had a question.
This is the danger, is that we've made some progress, but you would still want people to be aware of this.
Yes. Go ahead now. You have a question?
Hi, yes, I do, Brian. How is it that we're spending a lot of money in Waverly West? And let's not answer with the population density, because I've asked you that before and it makes no sense. We're doing a lot of money spending over there in that particular area. Why can't we hold it off for a year or two?
It's a Janice Luke's legacy project.
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
I live at the south end of the city. I know what's going on over there, and her answers are not working for me.
Yeah, I mean, I had a meeting with the mayor recently saying, well, I'm trying to get some money for the Southeast Rec Center. And we had all these charts done. The growth is about 40% in the Southeast of what it's been in the Southwest. Not 0, not 100, but it's smaller, but it's still significant. So if you've got a $100 million rec center here, don't criticize my $5 million thing that I've got over here. So, yeah, it's a lot of money being lined up for Waverly West. I'm sure Councillor Lukes would say, I don't have an arena, I don't have a library. True, she then shouldn't be saying, well, we have to make better use of existing facilities, which is what we said when we voted on some of this density
but
stuff.
let's be honest, it's $100 million today, but by, if you base it on what happens in Winnipeg in a couple of years, it'll be $400 million, right? But we're telling people they've got to pay more. We're increasing water rates, taxes, waste, garbage fees. We're increasing every possible thing we can do, but we're not looking at a project like $100 million rec center and saying, why don't we do it as a P3? Because I know that was an option early in the game. They could have built. And do you need a Taj Mahal of a community center? They have the university close. There's a hockey rink there that can be used. I mean, most of there's other facilities at the university that public has access to, pools and such. The soccer fields are there. There's all kinds of other access. I just don't understand why, and I think it's a valid question. Why on one hand are we talking like we're poor and we need to take more money from residents and we're doing everything we can and these are difficult decisions, but we're not cutting expenses and we're all green lighting? Let's call it what it is, a Taj Mahal of a community center that is not necessary. I mean, if you need a community center, yes. I think you should have a place where you can go and have a community center like every other community in the city. If you're going to build one in the south, then you better start building. You better build one here in Westwood, but you can't because you have the MTS Iceplex. That's always the argument. Well, you have the Iceplex here. So
yes, I've heard that from your successor, who is fighting for that. Yeah, everyone wants stuff for their ward. That's how we're elected on a ward basis. You're not elected at large. People inevitably feel they aren't getting their fair share. It is the line has been, it's a regional center, and this big circle is drawn. And somebody comes into my ward, and I say, they're not. That house is like a 5-minute walk from the Dakota Community Center, and it's a running track. They're not going to go over to this thing in Lutz's way. It's regional. It seems make believe. So yeah, I mean, it's a new area. They do deserve a community center. How big it should be, well, some of this is federal and provincial money, and Terry Duguid has been a big champion for this thing too. So, what frustrates me is if the councillor wants to do that, fine. Don't then get up and say, well, we need this densification stuff because we've got to make better use of existing facilities. Well, come on, you're not a great salesperson for that point of view. Like we don't have this sort of make believe, vacant subway station sitting there from the 1930s or something. Most places are already pretty well used. So the density does have some side effects.
So my understanding from when I was on council is that they wanted the YMCA or the YWCA to open the pool there, but they didn't want to do it because they said it's a money loser. So the YMWCA says it's a money loser, so the city decides to invest a couple of $100 million into building a pool that's going to be a money loser. We have one final question because we have to get Brian out of here and bring up Mr. Doddridge.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I have a question with regards to the city and how they, is there a formula that the city follows or decides on where a fourplex is built? Like, so for example, I live in Fort Garry, my neighbor might sell their house. How do I know a fourplex won't go in? Is it or the next person that buys it? Is there a formula they use?
Great question. That's this debate, right? That's between here and June 8th, what we have to sort out. What do you mean by where appropriate? Well, the staff, I finally got this right. I took the staff out driving on the gravel back lanes in my ward, and one woman was 8 months pregnant. So after that, they said, yeah, we shouldn't be quadrupling the population on these things. Great. So, but yeah, your street, all of the, I'm manually going through these charts of what does it mean if we agree to 60 feet wide? What does it mean if we agree to 66 feet wide? How big an impact that does have a big impact. So yeah, you should know. Here's the rule. I have a gravel lane. None of this is coming. I have a paved back lane. Is the neighbor 50 feet wide? Then yeah, I'm probably at risk of that going in. 3 or 4plex at risk might get criticized for using that. But yeah, there's certainly. But you're next to the lot that's 60 feet wide. Well, maybe I'll have moved an amendment and gotten that up to 66 feet. That kind of thing. So it is hard to know. It's supposed to be citywide. The devil's in the details, and we're still working on that.
So what you're saying is there is no real formula. at all, like with the city. It's just whatever
ad hoc. Well, there's a proposal, quite a detailed chart of, and to be fair, they had like 3 plexes on 45-foot lots. I said, there's my whole neighborhood. You suddenly were, and they came back and said, okay, 3 plexes on 60-foot lots. Then if you don't have a lane, okay, that's actually, that's much better. So,
but here's the issue I want to raise for you.
That is the question.
Yeah.
Is that, again, I think the city and a lot of politicians will make it the worst of something, right? Talk about four-plexes, and then tell you, okay, we're not going to do four-plexes, but not talk to you about the 3-plexes, which are going to happen all the time. And most of this infill development, despite what a lot of people say, it's local business, it's all local builders and stuff, a lot of the infill is coming from people outside the province, right? Okay, people from Alberta and stuff like that, they have the money. These are investment properties, right? A lot of people invest in these things. So they come into a market like this, they buy a house, they'll sit on that house for a year if they have to, rent it out until they can get the neighbors next door to sell. Now all of a sudden they have 2 25-foot lots or a 50-foot lot or 2 30-foot lots. Now it's 60 feet. That's the game that's played here. That's the business that this is.
It's the uncertainty, right? So that somebody, one of the new developers from right at the edge of the town said, this is great news for us, because if you're 30 years old looking to buy a house, are you going to go on Crofton Bay in my ward? I don't know. Neighbors could change. I like this neighborhood the way it is now. Could be totally different in 5 years, and I'll have all the construction. Let's just go out to Sage. A lot of young kids out there. Let's go build in Sage. So ironically, it has like this disincentive to, for people to stay in the older neighborhoods. So yeah, trying to bring some certainty to the uncertainty.
Is there a way that the public or residents can go to City Hall and make sure that there is a formula that is being followed? Like, is there a way we can rally to do that?
Yeah, that's June 2nd, 8th. It's the public hearing, and it's everybody can come down.
You have to pre-register. Are they going to give them 5 minutes? Because I heard the rules were going to be changed to be...
No, it should be 10. Oh, I know how I would vote for 10. So.
You'll vote for 10, but I mean, most councillors, I was there. I know most of them don't want to hear from residents. They don't like it. And I mean, I sat in those rooms after 8 hours of hearings, and all the councillor could say is, I'm so sick of you. You worked 8 hours. Everybody works 8 hours. You can certainly sit there and listen to residents for 8 hours. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I said once at 4 o'clock, somebody, it's been a long day, and Tom brought that just trash. It was a long day for you. Maybe, I don't know. Won't be doing that again. Lesson learned.
To her point, they can. You have to pre-register, though. You have to make sure you get in, pre-register, and you're not allowed to ask questions.
But there's an email that you can write into with questions it's in the Sun. That's an infill thing. So yeah, all you can do is try.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
I would take the time to really go after your area councillor too and make sure that they know.
Okay. Yeah, that's my assistant said. Should we go door to door? And I said, I know how I'm voting. And we can't really go door to door in some other people's wards. So yes, document looking.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think we have time for one quick one. One more?
Yeah,
okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Four-plexes. No, that's all I do for a living.
He didn't even want to talk to you, so we're done. He thought about it for a second, but no, I'm going to go. Anyways, Brian, thank you very much for this. I think that we've opened up some eyes. We're going to try to, I know Marty's going to write a little bit more about it in the Winnipeg Sun before the meeting comes up. The in-person meeting's tomorrow, but I think people have to register for that one as well. No? Okay?
No, just show up at that.
Go ahead.
Can I say my one line? This is how and Kelly was at the meetings, I think, that I had in my ward. The one line, here's how I opened, which was, why am I doing this? So that if I'm in the liquor store lineup in 10 years, somebody from high school comes up to me and says...
Not buying U.S. booze, though.
No, in 10 years, saying, if somebody comes up to me and says, nice job letting them wreck the neighborhood, I'm going to say, no, I did everything I could. You should have, I needed your help. Yeah. That's what, this is... Yeah, it's worth doing.
Kelly?
Okay, I'm Kelly Ryback. Just for tomorrow at the Convention Center between 4 and 7, you do not have to pre-register. I encourage that if you're passionate and concerned about this, go. The city staff will be there. The PowerPoint presentation will likely be up on easels and storyboards. You can see it big. Okay, winnipeg.ca/infill housing if you want to see that presentation. Also, and I participated in the Zoom call yesterday. I do encourage you to go. Let me give you an example. In the Transit Master Plan, when they held their open houses at the St. James Civic Center, I educated people through St. James Facebook social media. And through my initial lobbying, 3 routes were reinstated because of the feedback from the residents at that meeting. And with my lobbying at City Council, I've been a delegate over 60 times. They will be heard. You can be heard. You'll get more information there. You'll be able to talk to the people who were on the Zoom meeting yesterday from the public service. So I encourage you, I'm going, take a bus, experience transit. But I'm telling you.
And you do need a weapon.
And then between now to April 28th, you can submit questions to infill housing at winnipeg.ca, I think it is. And they are publishing all the unique questions and their answer to those questions online following yesterday and today's Zoom meetings and tomorrow's open house at the convention center. The failure that most councillors have made, be it the transit master plan or this, is not holding their own sessions inside their wards. And it's one reason in 2021 why Kevin Klein voted against the transit master plan, because the whole thing from publishing to approval was 2 weeks. And I was the only delegate that spoke against it because of the lack of public consultation and some of the routes that are missing. That I'm proud to say 3 routes got reinstated in St. James, the transit master plan.
Good job.
So I'm encouraging you. There is an opportunity to be heard, be respectful, but they will listen. I'll tell you regarding the transit master plan, because I read everything. I'm the only one that identified a major mistake in the final project plan that a councillor commended me on for bringing it forward. Secondly, it got to be heard, but just do it. But the failure is they're not holding ward meetings. Brian Mayes is the only one that's done it. But I've also heard other councillors now being concerned to encouraging people to be heard because it's not what was advertised a year and a half ago. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks. So, do you want to mention that? Or?
Yeah, that reminds me, thanks, Kelly. The Councillor White and I have a motion coming to council next week that would have 15 more public in-person meetings. Compromise is possible on that, I hope, I think. So there might be some more than the one tomorrow. But all that was scheduled to date is that one that's tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get some more out across the city.
All right, we're going to take a quick little break to bring up Wally Dondridge. I want to thank Councillor Brian Mayes for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I'll note. You know, we were on council. We worked. We had differing views on a lot of things, but we always got along and worked together very well, I thought. So I appreciate that about you and that you're open to this stuff. But I'm going to note you didn't answer the question on who's running the show, or why nobody talked about cuts in the budget. So you and I will have discussions about that over time. So thank you very much. We're going to take a quick little break. We have a message from a sponsor. We're going to bring up Mr. Dondridge.
All right.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks.